Diane, to a lot of us, you're probably best known for Star Trek. I know, it's horrifying. Is that how you started with Trek novels?
No. I began writing when I was about 8, to amuse myself mostly. And as I grew, the writing changed depending on what was on TV or the movies at that point. So I had a certain period in my early development where I wrote the most god-awful Trek fan fiction I ever saw. It was just indescribably bad. And after that I moved on to doing indescribably bad sort of rip-off Tolkien, and indescribably bad rip-off C.S. Lewis, and indescribably bad, well, maybe not so indescribably bad. It was getting better at that point, even Nesbitt and other people. And about the time that I stopped work as a nurse and went to work with David Gerald as his assistant for a while, the work was actually getting better enough to the point where friends who saw it thought that I should start submitting it to publishers. I didn't actually do that at that point. David caught me in the middle of my first fantasy novel, read some of it, said, this is actually not too terrible. So when you finish it, let me see it, and if it's good, if it's any good, I'll give it to my publisher. Maybe they'll publish it, I don't know. So he did that, and they did in fact buy it about a week after they read it. And it's been sort of books ever since. But the Trek, in particular, I just finished my second novel at that point, which was a children's book. And, I noticed that friends of mine who were writers out in the LA area, some of them were also writing Star Trek novels, and frankly, some of them were really bad. And it got me very angry. And I just angry on one book in particular, I can't recall which one anymore, but I just chucked it wrong. I could write better than this standing on my head in a leaf. And fortunately, no one required me to do that. I started doing an outline for a novel, and I called my agent and I said, Don, guess what? I'm going to write a Star Trek novel. There's this long pause, and he said, do you have to? And I said, well, yeah, I have to do this. This has just sort of descended on me from above or wherever. And he said, well, all right, fine, let me see the outline. And I do that, and they bought the book again quite quickly. And since then, every now and then, I break over and do a Trek book. And of course, the cosmic irony of it is that most people here in particular, not so much in the States, but here, know me more for the Trek than anything else. It's just one of those things you learn to live with after a while.
That first book was The Wounded Sky.
Yeah.
Did that just pop up from nowhere?
Yeah.
Tilt the Spider?
Tilt, yeah. She was actually a late addition to the story. I knew I needed an alien scientist. I didn't know who she was going to be. And I was
referred to as a pretty alien scientist on the book.
Pretty blue-eyed. I wrote that book, and it's true. She is pretty, but she was blue-eyed. 12 eyes. I was having dinner with a friend who was an arachnophobe. And as often happens, you tease your friends about these things. And I was telling her about these giant Brazilian spiders with bodies the size of dinner plates, and that eat birds. And I would, she's going, oh, shut up, dude. And I went, wait a minute, that's just what I need. I need a giant, like I need a 3-foot spider, with a lot of legs, and just a very confusing creature. And that was her. Everything else just sort of wrote itself after this. The trouble you're going to find, as we discuss this further, is that I have very little to say about the writing process except that it happens. I don't really understand how it happens. I don't pretend to. And it is my considered belief that any writer who tells you that they understand how the writing process works is lying through their teeth. I don't think any of us know. And I think those of us who do think they know are wasting their time trying to work it out or explain it to people. It's a black box as far as I'm concerned, and as long as things work, I don't poke. I don't inquire too closely as to the process. It's not my job. Life is too short. Anyway, there's too much work to do to worry about how the gears mesh and how they go round and which bits fit into which other bits inside the black box. I don't care. The writing comes out. That's fine. I don't understand it. Don't ask me.
So the next Trek book you did was The Romulan Way.
Yeah. Well, my name and my L, I think.
Oh, Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Were you commissioned to do that, or did the idea of doing something about the Romulans or further about the Romulans just sort of hit you?
It's quite funny. This was about the time the Klingon Dictionary came out the first time, before it caught on, and it had not done terribly well. And I had gotten in touch with my editor there and said, look, I'd like to do a Romulan dictionary. He says, well, look, there's really no demand. They really don't want to do another dictionary because the Klingon dictionary is just not selling. But you could do a book about Romulans if you like. And I said, well, that sounds like fun. Maybe I'll do that. So that was the first one. And then Romulan Way followed on that. I said to them, would you like some more detail about the planet? We'll interweave it with a story. And they said, that sounds like fun. Why don't you do that? And so I did. But it would have been a dictionary if they didn't do what I wanted to. And probably, to tell the truth, when you're doing dictionary work of that kind, when you're explaining where a language comes from, probably the cultural material will come along as well. Because you can't describe a language without describing the parent culture. It just doesn't work. But it's one of those things that turns into something entirely different than what you originally imagined.
I much prefer reading the Romulan Way and Diane Duane. I would have done a dictionary.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. There is apparently some talk now of doing a Romulan dictionary, but I think it would be sort of next generation Romulans as opposed to my guys. There was a little problem in the office, let's say, with Rihansu, as it is.
Mr. Roddenberry, Diane Duane's Romulans are much more realistic than your Romulans. Why don't you use them instead?
Yeah. And when you have like hundreds of people writing to Gene Roddenberry and telling him this repeatedly, he got cranky, and why wouldn't he? I'd get cranky if anyone tried that with my stuff. Wrote to me and said, I think Peter Lorwitz here was much better than yours. I'd hunt them down and slug them in the gut.
That's the same to me.
Anyone else who was in there. But yeah, and so they got a little cranky about it. At least one person formerly in the Trek office began spreading the rumor that this book was not actually originally written as Trek, but had been another science fiction novel that didn't sell, which I then quote unquote reworked as a Trek novel. And I just laughed. I actually sick my lawyer on that one. But in any case, he doesn't say that anymore. It's supposed to be.
It doesn't work for them anymore either.
No, that's true. But in any case, the feel of the Romulans has now gone more towards the people with the big shoulder pads that we know from TNG. I asked them, was there any interest in doing any more Romulan books, and they said, well, the trouble is that your first two books were actually published long enough ago that most of that readership would not be familiar with the concept if you brought it back, and they're already used to the TNG one at this point, so maybe not. And I went, okay, fine, I'll do something else. So.
Well, I know what I prefer. That's very much McCoy-centric.
Yeah.
And a lot of your books feature McCoy very, very strongly. Was that the character of McCoy that you latched onto, or is it the nursing background?
It's both. It's both. It comes in two parts. I always liked the character. The other side of it is that I'm tired of seeing him written as a crotchety and possibly incompetent medical person. He can be crotchety, but he has to be competent as well. And since there are precious few of the other Trek writers with the expertise to write good medical background, I do that every chance I get. And my preference when pitching anything, Trek televised is to go for the doctors whenever possible. The new what's his face now, he's a cutie. I want to write with him, so I have to talk around about that too. But I've always liked the medical end of things, specifically because it tends to get the short end of the stick in Trek. Because just very few medical personnel also write Star Trek. So I have a chance to exploit this to best advantage. So I jump up and down and yell about doctors, and they go, yeah, let her do what she wants. Shut up. So that works out.
So the Doctor's Orders was a revelation, wasn't it? But it was so. I think it's the best McCoy I've ever seen written.
Well, I'm glad it seems to work for people. he's, you know, if there's anything I've always liked doing about the books, it's portraying the people in them as professionals in their field rather than as just idiots sort of playing around serving the story one way or another. And McCoy in particular, you know, there's a tremendous amount of both medical, surgical, and psychological expertise that's going to be required of a Starship's doctor. I mean, just the way the job is set up, you're going to have to be really good at a whole bunch of different things. And the chance to show him faking commanding the Starship, because he's just faking it madly through the whole book, is very enjoyable. I mean, it also, the idea springs certainly from the character's own tendencies to bitch and moan and complain about the way the ship is being run all the time. So the way you exploit that is to stick the poor guy in the chair and see how he likes it. And he hates it. He thinks it sucks. You know, but he learns to cope because he has no choice. They all cope because they all have no choice.
Have you any idea what you're going to do for the Doctor and Voyager yet?
No. Not a clue. I hope to have a clue next week sometime. It's really, the problem is, like anything else, any other project, is making time to sit down and think about it. There's a lot of other projects flying around in the house, and when you have to, you know, serve your career and also, you know, make sure that you're fed and that people around you occasionally get fed, like the cats and your husband sometimes and stuff like that. It can become quite complex just to find the time to sit down and do what needs doing. I haven't had time to sit down and think about Voyager because we've been moving house, and only now, after sort of a month and a half of being in the process of getting moved and getting junk out of boxes and sorting things out and so forth, is there actually now time to spend on that. So as I say, next week I desperately hope to have some kind of idea about this. Don't ask me, I don't know where they come from. I'll sit down and think about it, and something will occur. If it doesn't, I'll let it sit for a couple of weeks and I'll come back to it later. Fortunately, there's no great pressure. They'll be taking pitches on Voyager until after Christmas, easily. So, you know, it's just a matter of, again, making the time.
You were saying earlier you're going to change your fantasy series and make it a lot more adult.
It's not specifically a change. The Fire Group I've got to come back to with another book sometime this year, which will complete that series. It's hardly a secret. I'm going to kill all the main characters. Everyone knows this. I like them, but after, you know, sort of 15 years now almost of working with this particular series, it's come time to put them on the train and wave goodbye. And I will do this with great pleasure, and I'm going to kill them all. And everyone's going to love it, I promise you. Everyone's going to sit there crying and going, oh, but this is so great. You know, at least that's the plan. Right? If it doesn't work, fine. You know, then I've killed them. And, you know, you got to break a few eggs occasionally to make an omelet. And I'm sure they'd be charmed to hear that. But what are you going to do with this woman, God? I think I'll kill her. Being the deity has its occasional downside. But the children's series, the Wizard books, I'm doing an adult book in that universe next, Cats in Grand Central. At least it's adult from the cat's point of view, because these characters are the cats that do maintenance on the world gates of Grand Central Station in Penn. We use cat wizards for this as opposed to human wizards because cats can see hyperstring structure and manipulate it. One of the cats in the book reflects that some human at some point or another must have seen a feline gate technician about her work, which involves grabbing these strings with your claws and pulling them around and weaving them into odd shapes. And we, you know, our memories of Cat's Cradle have to do with what cats do with strings to knit them together and make things fall through into other universes, including themselves sometimes. It's how you can't ever keep a cat in one place. It will come out somewhere else sooner or later, even out of a locked room. That's how they do it. That's how they do it. So the three cats, who are the viewpoint characters in this book, they're all adults, but they have to break in a new wizard who is a very serious, bad feral kitten. Very punk. And the kind of person you have to take everywhere twice, once to apologize. And it's the perfect viewpoint character as well, because since this creature has the potential as a wizard, but doesn't know any of the rules or how to do stuff. It has to be taught everything. So everything has to be explained, also to the reader, who also doesn't know how this works. So it's a great way to handle it. That's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be very enjoyable. There won't be sex in it, but everything else. Well, the two of the wizards of Spade, and one nothing to do with the third one, who's a tomcat with much too much equipment for his own good. You know, he's always talking about that cute little tabby he had the other night. They're going, oh God, how can you do this? That's boring.
So that's just one of the things on your pending pile. It sounds horrific. You've just done an interactive film.
Yeah, that's for Electronic Arts. It'll be coming out in the spring. A thing called Darkening. There's a lot. The publicity is now beginning in Japan, so people are starting to go, "You wrote that? Wow!" And yeah, it's fairly heavy work. It's in essence a combination between a movie and a computer game, so that you, as the viewpoint character, wake up, as it were, in a strange place, not knowing your own name or who you are or why all these people are shooting at you. And you've got to find out, because if you don't, they'll kill you. It's very straightforward. They've just finished the shooting about 2 months ago. They're now in the editing stages. The cast is wonderful.
Jürgen Prochnow?
Jürgen Prochnow, Brian
Blessed is the priest of beer.
as the priest.
Oh, yeah.
Who else is in there? David Warner. Isn't David Warner?
David Warner, yeah.
He's in there. I've lost the name of the guy again who's the star. Chris Evans? No.
Chris
No, not Chris Evans.
Somebody else.
Anyway, it's quite an impressive cast. It's not the usual sort of let's fake it and hire Mark Hamill kind of thing. Ooh, did I say that? Yeah. But in any case, it's quite a production. Literally, they spent £4 million on it. It's going to be quite an impressive thing, both in terms of the film and the game. It's coming out, as I say, spring on 4 CDs, I think. It's either 4 or 6, I forget. Is it 6? Have we got a count? And it's really neat. It's a movie, you know, but it's also a game that you play.
How difficult was that technically to actually write, getting all the different
Getting the endings sorted out was not too bad. I mean, you can't have too many because the data compression just isn't up to putting, 14 different endings, which we would also have to shoot on what has to be a limited number of CD-ROMs, and people have to be able to afford to buy the game. So there are like 5 or 6 alternate endings that you can wind up with. The game sort of branches out in the middle and then it comes back together again at the end. But it's quite neat. It's very neat. The challenge of it was just writing something so long, because a normal feature film screenplay will be about 120 pages, 110, 120 pages. By the time this was finished, we were pushing 380, and it was just physically a bit of an effort to just do that much work. It's this thing the size of a phone book is the script, and complex. The director himself complained that it took him like 2 read-throughs to understand what was going on, because it was not linear. It was non-linear storytelling. Very little of this has been done. So I think it's the first time it's actually been done well. And I'm not just talking about my own involvement about it. It's just a question of enough money and enough talent being committed to the whole project to make it turn out well. A lot of the so-called interactive movies done so far have been pretty poor, because they just weren't prepared to spend enough money on them to make them good. This time they spent the money. So I think a lot of people are very impressed with this one. I want to do another one. We shall see.
You're also working on a project at the moment, an animated version of The Spirit.
The Spirit, that just came through, not last week, but the week before. We had signed a deal memo sometime earlier, but we were waiting for the final approvals to come through from Will Eisner, and he finally approved. So next week, how terrible, I have to fly to Paris for a business meeting. Beat me, hit me, make me go to Paris. I love it. This is great. But ideally what I'll be doing for them is the Bible for the series, the sort of instruction manual for the writers who will be coming to it, and the pilot script. And if it goes, if the French networks give us the financing we need, then we'll go to series, and I can just start. That would keep me very busy most of next year. We'll have to see how that goes. As usual, it's what they call a step deal, where you turn in the novel, the Bible, and they pay you for that. And then you turn in the outline for the pilot, and they pay you for that. And then you turn in the pilot itself. And at any stage along the way, you can be, as you say, cut out or cut off. And it's always a little dangerous to get into a step deal with that many cutoff points in it, because you never know quite how long they're going to keep you. So all I can do is sort of make myself indispensable immediately, and just have them understand that there's no one else on the planet who can possibly do this well. I mean, I know I can do it. It's just convincing them is always the exciting part.
So that's something you're really looking forward to.
That's going to be fun. The Spirit is probably one of the best done comics, cartoons ever made, and Will Eisner is just a genius of his kind. It's going to be very interested in keeping the feel and the look of the original in a series that is going to have to be modern in at least some respects. Because there was always a very 40s feel to the Spirit. I think our smartest way to go is to try to do what, for example, Batman did, the animated series, where they kept a sort of 40s look about the thing, even though it was still clearly now. I think that's the best way to balance. And thank God, I think the producers agree with me, so we'll be able to go forward in those lines.
You did some novels with Peter, which certainly caused some confusion. They were called Space Cops.
They were called Space Cops. This is before the series ever came out. The novels predate them by about 2-3 years, I think. It just seemed like an idea. A packager who's a friend of ours came to us and said, would you like to do some books, featuring these two characters? And we said yes. So we fleshed the characters out, and we did the 3 books. So they're out of print now in the States, actually, and I don't think there will be any more. But they were enjoyable. I have a sneaking fondness for the concept of powered armor, being very much a Starship Troopers fan. Early on, the book that got me spanked. I came home. I read the book when I was sitting at the library, and I came home and I said to my father, "Do you know that all wars are caused by population pressure?" I was 8 at the time, and he said, "No, they're not." I said, "Yes, they are." He said, "No, they're not." I said, "Yes, they are." So he spanked me. God rest him, he's dead, and Heinlein's dead, and Heinlein was still right. But I've always loved that book. And one of the 2 cops in the book is a suit talent. He works in powered armor, and his buddy is sort of the brains of the team. And works just sort of in a flak jacket and prays he doesn't get shot at a lot.
Put the other guy in front.
Yeah. They were fun to do.
You've got a new Spider-Man book?
Yeah, that one I have to do now before Christmas. And it's just sorting the schedule out really is what makes it crazy. Huh? Yeah, I'm the Book of the Month Club. I mean, why not? Someone has to do it.
Have you ever heard of the concept of writer's block?
No. No, I've heard of it. I've never had one.
You've never ever had one?
No. And if I have one, I'll worry about it then. I have no intention of worrying about it just now. Life's too short. I really believe that a lot of writers make the mistake of thinking that they need to wait to be inspired before they can write. And I have no interest in that theory. I don't wait to be inspired. I grab the muse, I say, yo, ho, sit down here. Work now. I really believe that it would be a very poor kind of writer who has to wait all the time for inspiration, any more than, for example, a carpenter would need to be inspired to drive a nail, or a truck driver to drive a lorry. This is a job. This is work. And you sit down every day and you do it. And it's like driving nails or driving a truck. And if you just sit around waiting to feel like doing it, you're going to wait a long time. I don't have the leisure to do that. This is a career. I get up and I do my work as far as possible every day. There are times when I really procrastinate like anything because it's something I don't want to do. a piece of work that, you know, seemed like a good idea at the time, but now I really think it's a horrible idea, and I'm sorry I ever got into this.
Sequest.
Yeah, you know, and so I'll procrastinate. I'll really put it off until the last minute, and then I'll sit down grumbling and I'll do it. But it ain't a block. It's just I don't wanna do that, and I get the I don't wannas occasionally. I don't want to write this book. I don't want to write this cartoon now. I want to write it like next decade. Except that they want it next week, so you have to do it anyway. And those fits I do have, but not blockage as such. Anytime I sit down at the machine, I can write. It's just getting my butt in the chair that sometimes can be exciting.
The last time I saw you was in 1990 at Frontiers, and you were saying then, I'm never going to write another Star Trek.
No, what I was saying was I'm not going to write any Star Trek until conditions change in the front office.
Which at that time looked highly unlikely.
It looked unlikely at that point. There were people in the front office who would just make it their life's work to interfere with the writers. Since they couldn't interfere with the script writers because their work is regulated under Writers Guild rules, and they weren't in that particular creative group. They would interfere with the novelists, and they would interfere with some of them just for fun. I know one poor woman who was made to rewrite her novel 4 times just to amuse this one person in the office because he didn't like her. And this person unfortunately rather had it in for women in general, women writers in particular, women writers who were on the New York Times bestseller list even more, because this person himself did not have enough talent, writing talent, creative talent to play the big bag. And it was, you know, you feel sorry for people like that, but you can't let them interfere with your life. So after he tried to interfere with me, I just said, okay, that's it, I'm going to step back now. I'm going to wait until circumstances so change that this person either is out of the creative loop or is not in the office anymore. And shortly thereafter, to my great annoyance, Gene Roddenberry died. But shortly after that, this person was fired. I said, oh, well, it's an ill wind, I guess, you know. And after that, I said, well, I guess I can write for him. So I did it. It was simply a matter of waiting on it. Because I always knew this person had been annoying enough people that eventually he would go. And when he went, I would still be here. And there would still be people who would say, you know, we want a Duane Trek novel. And I would go, okay. You know, and that was it. So that was Dark Mirror was the one that came back. Quite funny. We were sitting in the pizzeria when that came out.
Sitting in a pizzeria in Dublin, eating and drinking too much and pitching. About costume.
Yeah.
What costume would I wear at a Star Trek convention if I wore a costume? Well, I don't much fancy the usual costumes. What about the mirror movie type, but in black and silver with long shiny
Now at this point I began to yawn because he puts all his heroes in black and silver. I go, give me a break, you know. But then he starts to sketch the thing. I'm going, yeah, that's not too bad actually. But then we moved from that to the question which suddenly occurred, why haven't they done a Next Generation mirror story, which they had done at that point? And the more the question went around, it then turned into, why hasn't anyone pitched a Next Generation mirror novel? That would be great. Someone must have pitched it. And the more we asked ourselves this, the crazier we got. And finally, I ran out of the pizzeria, I left my pizza on the table, run across the street to the phone box. And I called my editor in New York. I said, call me back, here's the number. He says, okay. So he calls me back in Ireland, you know, standing there on the phone box. And I said, look, has anybody pitched a Next Generation mirror novel? He says, no. I said, is there any reason that, you know, one hasn't been published? Has the head office said they don't want one or something? He says, no. I said, would you like one? He said, yes. And so that was it. It was quite fun. It was very much a reaction against nice Trek. Nice Trek. So 7 years of nice. They're all so bloody self-actualized. I hit them with a brick. You know, not that I don't understand the uses of self-actualization and how it would be really wonderful to work with a bunch of people who were that educated at not killing one another, you know, and working as a team. But even in the best of times, if you worked with people like that on a regular basis, you'd think it would get on your nerves. Because they're just all so bloody nice. You know, so I said, how can we make them less nice without interfering with the characters? And the obvious way to do that is, you know, consider their mirror counterparts, who are all schmucks of one nature or another. I mean, you know, Picard is a dreadful, cold, calculating thing. You know, Wesley is a homicidal little creep, and so sort of deserves. We had to put him in the Aggie booth twice. It was a terrible pleasure. You know, Troy is head of security, and just goes paddling through people's minds at her whim, and they don't dare say anything because she'll kill them. And also, she's got
letters from teenage boys wanting a drawing of her costume,
which isn't much there. Or what there is suggests more than it shows. I mean, it's a great costume.
Puissance.
Puissance, yeah. So it was fun. It was a lot of fun to do that. Just have them all just be terrible. I mean, God, the Frakes character, the Riker character is just such a creep. It's just wonderful. Yeah. And then you throw the real Picard into the midst of all of these people and make him pretend to be the fake one. And he's just going, who am I here? Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's fun to do.
It's a good way of getting all that out of your system then.
Yeah. You know, I just took all the characters that we know and love, and I looked for the fundamental flaw in everyone's makeup, and then you know, expanded it until it took over their whole personality. And that was fun. Never mess with psych nurses. We know this.
You've got another Trek novel on your pending pile.
That's in Televore, yeah. This is I have to write that one in February. Sorry, it's just when it's due. I mean, yeah, I can't help when it's due. It's very nasty. It's the answer to the question, what can you have the Enterprise and Picard run across that's so awful that his immediate response is, shit, we've got to kill him. Immediate. No soul searching. No angst, no agony, just we've got to wipe it out now. So this is the answer to that question. It's really awful. I'm not going to tell you. As they used to say in my book reports in 5th grade, you'll have to read the book. It's very cool. Ooh, it's bad. It's so bad. I really, you know, I walked around for days afterward. God, where did that come from? Jeez, I'm awful. So, you know, this is very bad.
Has anybody got any questions for Diane?
I think it was EastCon 90 told you worked on novelizations of other things.
Sequence. They sent us the script. We had to write it. I mean,
I was thinking you actually did worse than that.
Oh, what have we done this course? I forget.
Well, if I'm mistruthing this, I apologise profusely, but My Little Pony.
Oh, not a novelization.
The real thing.
I wrote My Little Pony. One was enough. After that, I wanted a machine gun every horse I saw. Hey, it was so cute. God, can you get diabetes just by writing one script? Yes, man. It was terrible. Oh my God, was it awful. Not as bad as the Transformers I did, though. That was fun. That was fun. I did that with Len Wein. Because really a Transformers script is nothing but a long pan across the product line. And by the time all the characters had finished saying hello to each other, 30 minutes had passed. So we did one where we took the chief bad robot and we sent him to a mental hospital. That was a lot of fun. Payne Whitney, yeah, damn near. That was fun. But My Little Pony was just a very blatant rewrite of the Ransom of Red Sheet, which every animation writer rewrites for their series at one point or another. It's always good. Also, there's always a birthday story and a Christmas story and a Halloween story. We always do those.
For the British market, explain the Ransom.
Oh, it's a short story by O. Henry in which a bunch of gangsters kidnap a small child thinking to hold him for ransom. And the small child is such a terror that they hand him back with pleas to the parents to please take him away. So there are a lot of variants written on that story. You will run across them, especially in animated series where you run out of ideas that week and you say, I know, let's reuse Brands for Red Shape. That's always good. The wicked character is, the wicked bad guys in My Little Pony, mercifully, I can't recall who they were at this point, actually kidnapped the little brother of the girl who is the pony's friend. And they discovered rather abruptly that they've bitten off a lot more than they can chew.
I think in this phrase, rabbit was right.
Yeah, and so the bad guys, show up at the pony's, cute little corral or whatever, saying, "Please take him back. It was a mistake." Yeah. So I did one of those.
Is that at the top of your CD list then?
No. I got an email from Michael Reeves, who I wrote the Trek episode with, and he was looking at the copy of my CD that's in our webpage. It says, "You're a braver woman than I would ever be." But he actually told people you wrote My Little Pony. I not only told them that, I told them I wrote for Scooby-Doo. That was fun. That was actually a lot of fun. It was very enjoyable. We used to, the censors were very censorious on those. They were always looking for ways to interfere. So we would put in 3 or 4 things that we knew they would take out, so they'd leave 1 or 2 good things in. It's an old technique. We used to do the same thing on. I was writing with the same guys, the 2 guys who taught me, Thomas Whale and Dwayne Poole. They would move from show to show at Hanna-Barbera, and I would sort of go along with a bunch of other writers that they knew they could trust. And so I did Scooby-Doo with them. I did the animated Laverne and Shirley, which never aired here. Don't complain. Then we did the animated Happy Days, Fonz and the Happy Days game, which may have aired here, I'm not sure. The one with the time machine. Don't ask. And then we did, what else we did? The Flintstones Comedy Hour. So I actually got to write for Captain Caveman.
Oh, yes.
That was wonderful. Mel Blanc is God rest him, he's gone now, but watching him record those was so funny because he would never come out of character. He stayed character the whole time. And the director would say, "Mel, can you put a little more oomph on the second part of the sentence?" He'd say, oh yeah, we screwed that up, we do that again. Do it again. He was a lunatic, very sweet man. He died finally of cancer, and he was quite ill with it for a long time, but he would come in and work anyway, because he just loved it. I mean, he didn't need to at this point. The estimate around the offices was that in terms of Screen Actors Guild residuals, he was making about $6,000 a week just sitting still and breathing. He didn't have to do anything, but he just kept going in just because he loved what he was doing so much.
But you never thought of actually making a full-time career of writing for Hanna-Barbera then?
I would have gone on staff if they'd asked me. They didn't. They were full up at that point. I've been on staff at Filmation. I did a short stint with them around the time that they were making He-Man. And while I wasn't actually working on it, 2 friends, Paul Dini, who just came off Batman, the animated series, and has been doing it on Maniac, and Robbie London, who is now Vice President of Creative and Jump over at Deej, another animation studio. We worked in that office together. They were working on He-Man. I was doing development on something called the Green Sliders, which is by the same people who did the Smoke Stonehouse. And, yeah, really, I know, it's desperate. And what we used to do...
Green Sliders always makes me think of what happens when you have a really serious head cold.
Yeah, you're right, too. In any case, I was working on this other thing, and they were working on He-Man. But we used to have a competition in the morning. They had the whole Castle Grayskull thing, with all the dolls, all the moving action figures. We would have a competition to see who could get get into the office first in the morning and put them in obscene positions. Because the Castle Grayskull was in the office of a wonderful man named Art Mandel, who died some years back, who was really instrumental in giving so many animation writers sort of a foothold in the industry. And this thing was in Art's office, so we would all run in there quick before he got in the morning and put them in just the rudest positions we could imagine. And then run away again, wait for his response. And to get him to laugh was a major event because he was very dry. He was just one of these wonderfully deadpan people who could not get him to crack up. If you caused Art to laugh, if you read something in one of your scripts, if you read a line and made him laugh, you knew that everybody else was going to be held for us on the floor. If you just sort of went, I remember once they were doing a map of Eternia, television where He-Man was supposed to live. It was sort of, this double globe map where we show one globe on each side. We took the map and we drew it in. We wrote things, since the series was financed by Mattel and did the dolls, we would do things like write on the map, the land of Hot Wheels, or here there be wild Barbies. We left this somewhat retooled map on his desk, and we heard him go in. He sat down at his desk and looked at the map, and he got up very quietly and shut his office door. And we all ran over to the office door and like this, and we hear him inside going, we went away well satisfied. We had made Armadacon laugh. That was enough for one day.
Actually, I didn't realise you did a lot of animation stuff, because I always wondered how on earth you wrote that stuff and stayed sane.
Very fast. quickly. When I was working on Dinosaurs, it got to, that's this. It wasn't here yet either. Don't answer. See that. It's
the Christian network had it.
Yeah, but we don't have a Christian network, thank God, so it's all right.
Thank the God of your choice.
Yeah, really. No, they kept it for a long. They still are airing it because it's witty but not violent, and I can't really argue on those bases.
It's better in German.
Yes, they call it the Asplodinos. It's real great, and what we do is you have two bunches of space-going dinosaurs. You have the good, nice dinosaurs, and you have the evil, wicked, naughty tyrannos. Now, there's a problem with the tyrannos. They have most of their knowledge about Earth from watching television. Yes, and so they're very stupid. And somebody asked me once, is this a comment on the essential banality of evil? I said, no, it's a comment on not watching too much television. It's bad for you. And so these good dinosaurs make contact with a bunch of teenagers who sort of help them on the rough spots. And the difficulty is that the good dinosaur, their planet has trouble. This is the one in opposite side of Earth orbit, on the other side of the sun, so we can't see it, right? And they timeshare it, I think, with some other people. But anyway, this planet has ecological difficulties and is no longer habitable. So the good dinosaurs are looking for a place to live, and they want to come here and live here quietly and not hurt us. The other ones, the tyrannos largely see Earth as having the largest state agent sign stuck in it. And they want us out by the end of the month, pretty much. But they're very dumb, and they don't really know how to go about it. So they tend to shoot things up a lot, but not be very successful. When I story edited that, we wound up often writing as many as 6 episodes a week. I can write a very, very fast half-hour script. And animation is a wonderful training ground for someone who wants to go into features and live-action television later, because it teaches you the virtues of structure and speed, and those are the two most vital things for someone who tends to make screenwriting any kind of a career. You have to be able to structure your story so it breaks cleanly, and you have to be able to write it fast. They need it Tuesday. They always need it Tuesday. And if you can write faster than the next guy, you will get hired more often than the next guy. They would much rather have something which needs a little rewriting, but is on their desk when you say it will be, than something which is brilliant but arrives too late to be used. Because the schedules are just unyielding. There is no room for error. If your show is due at the network on Tuesday, it has to be there. You can't just skip an episode of Trek The Next Generation, for example, because the writer was a little late. The network will not be amusing by this at all. So you learn to turn it on time, and you learn to produce the desired result fast. There's nothing better. It's a hard school. A lot of people during the writers' strike said, well, it's okay if I can't actually write live action. I'll just write animation to tide me over. And the truth is that animation has its own scolia, its own ways of functioning, and a lot of those people found themselves very, very left behind, very wrong, when they assumed that they could just write animation like that. It doesn't work that way. Whereas an animation writer can easily write live action. It's actually simpler to write Japanese drawing. It's very difficult. You may not look it, but it's harder. It's harder to have directors most of the time. Only the most expensive series can afford genuine directors for the time. So what you have to be able to do is describe the story in the script so completely that even storyboard artists will get it without help. It is easy.
Do you want to detect a network?
Oh, another a lower life forms? No, I tease. It's just that you cannot always count on them getting it quickly, and so you must spell it out. And this is a great way to learn how to do that. When I started writing live action, I had one of the people I was working with say, "It's okay, you don't need to write quite so much direction needs. Leave me something to do," said one director. I said, "Okay, I suppose, yeah." But I was not used to having them there. I'm used to writing a script that means if you've got a director, he knows what direction to go in. If you don't have one, it's okay, you can do it out. It's tough, but it's a good school to learn.
Aren't you forgetting the big one?
Oh, gargoyles, yeah, we worked for gargoyles. That was fun, twice.
Yeah, she's teaching me how to do animation.
The earn while you learn school is really good. Absolutely.
Whip, chair, and bacon slice.
Yeah, when he gets it right, I feed him. If he doesn't get it right, well, he beats himself. You can't start.
Not but all those cookbooks in the house now.
No, neither. He's done very well. The Irish one we did is going to be fun. Second season, called Mimi.
Sheena Easton voicing the Banshee.
Yeah. It's very good. Well, that's a nice thing. When you have these high quality Disney series, people fight to get into them. Like the way people, fought to get into Batman and Warner because it was just so good. And suddenly, everyone was there. David Warner and God knows who else, and you couldn't get rid of them. It was the same thing with this. So that's going to be a lot of fun when that airs. I don't think it will be very soon since they're only showing them once a week on the Disney Channel. I think it'll be easily a couple of years before we see on. It's the story of our lives. You write it, you collect the money, you go home. Then someday, usually the con, you see what you did. It's not like the studio sends you tapes or anything. They're too cheap for that.
That concept sounds a bit dark for Disney.
It is very dark. It's great. Yeah. My only regret is that Michael, my buddy who was the story editor on this, was interfered with as much as he was. They had a very dumb producer, it has to be said, who was...
He read a book on folklore.
Read a book on folklore, went to Oxford, thought that entitled him to write animation. Well, not a chance. They don't necessarily follow him. And he was unfortunately one of those people who is actively threatened by real talent around him. And Michael is a very, very talented writer, and so is Bryn, who's my co-story editor on Dinosaurs. And he messed up their stories every way he could. And they are still so good. I mean, Michael's just won his 3rd Emmy for work on Gargoyles. And now he's just taken up with Spielberg. It's going to be a lot of fun. Well, one of the things they're pitching to Spielberg is the Wizard books as a live-action series, so that could be most enjoyable. Most enjoyable. We'll have to see what happens. It could be fun. Might have to go to LA and do live-action screen. Help! Help! The Sacrifice. It's going to be very, very sad. Very sad. And the other half of the creative team is going to wind up with more work than he knows what to do with. Poor baby. Poor baby. Have to join the Writers Guild. How sad. Have to pay them that exorbitant initiation fee. Get to keep everything else.
Initiation is fun, especially when they're warm butter.
Ooh, can we quote you?
We could probably just have. Preserved for posterity.
There's fun there, but I won't touch it. That's his problem. He's contaminated. Peter is awful bad at puns. Aren't you? Yeah.
Anyone else?
Stop me before I describe writing for Scooby.
Stuck down with amazing.
Scooby was fun. That was fun.
What were you trying to slip past the censor anyway?
Sorry?
What were you trying to slip past the censor on that?
Oh, well, it would be, sort of random violence and stuff like that. More usually it would be jokes. It would be in jokes and puns. We would occasionally entertain the censors as well. I remember Tom once slipping a fake page into a script. Here are the characters in the Fonz and the Happy Days gang. They have a time machine they can run around in. And he put in this fake page where the time machine's doors open and they're outside Golgotha. And one of the characters rushes out and runs back in. The one who's always trying to sell things to me. He says, "Do you know what this is? This is a piece of the true cross. Do you know how much I can sell this for when we get back home?" And apparently the censor nearly wet herself. So hard, so hard. It's a thankless job, policing the morality of the nation. And we would get these peculiar notes from them. I remember one in particular where the characters were being were being tied to the central shaft of a windmill for some reason. And we had this note come back from BS&P, Network Standards and Practices, saying, well, you can't tie them up because that's imitable behavior. Kids might do that if they saw you doing that in a cartoon. And I had just opened our mouths to suggest something else entirely. They said, well, you can't chain them up. I said, these people obviously were not raised in the New York suburbs where you can actually go out and find the chain. But they let us chain them up. There would just be these bizarre hiccups of rationality. So we would put in a couple things which we knew they would descend on and remove, and they would thereby miss the 5 in-jokes on the next page.
Is that what keeps you sane?
Yes, absolutely, it certainly was. We really tried to sneak the best writing we could past the censors, and sometimes we succeeded. But at the same time, you're quite aware of working in a somewhat restricted area. Every story, for Scooby ends up, and I'd have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for these darn kids. It sort of, sinks into your consciousness. You wake up from a dream where someone says that to someone else, and you go, God, I thought that part of my life was long behind. Very strange. Very strange.
You have a lot of problems with political correctness.
Yeah. I don't like it much. I understand the original good impulse behind it, not to abuse other human beings. I understand that. What I don't like is the kind of political correctness we get a lot of now, where the message is more or less about being overly nice to other people whether they want it or not. The disabled or Native Americans, or pick your area.
Vertically challenged.
The vertically challenged, yes. What was the one guy who was taking this off very wonderfully? There's a guy who started doing politically correct fairy tales. He's done 2 books of those now, and he just came out with a book of politically correct Christmas stories. One was Rudolph the Nasally Empowered Reindeer. I love him. I want to bear his children. He is so lunatic. The man is nuts in all the best ways. He knows exactly which bit of Mickey to take out of that particular idiom. He's very good. It bothers me. If someone says to me, I feel that this particular usage of the language disempowers me, I understand that. I just don't like the way it's sort of flooded into everything. And it will go away. The pendulum will swing back again sooner or later, and people will stop minding one another's business quite so vigorously. Sooner the better, frankly. Among other things, it disempowers those people who are bold enough to stand up and do things on their own, to make changes on their own recognizance rather than expecting the culture to make them for them. If I were a disabled person, I would want to have my own fight about having the world accept me for what I was. I don't want everyone doing it for me, or I wouldn't. Anyway. Maybe I'm just nuts. It's an opinion. I have a lot of those.
Do you think maybe that's why the second generation Shrek is so much nicer than the original?
I don't know.
You didn't have so much political correctness back in the 60s.
I don't know. I think part of it can be traced directly to Roddenberry's own preferences. He, in some ways, he was a very nice person. He really foresaw this future where everybody, was nice to each other and it all worked. And while I absolutely support a future in which human beings allow other human beings to get on with their lives and be the most and the best that they can, I don't like his particular take on it, which infected badly the first part of the Next Generation, the first 4 or 5 years ago. I rather prefer the somewhat warrior, bumpier version, which began to emerge, I have to say it, after Gene was no longer directly influencing the creation of the episodes. I like human beings a lot. As a psychiatric nurse, I know maybe a little bit more about the dark side of them than most people do or want to. But what it also teaches you, what that branch of medicine teaches you, is that human beings have certain ways that they behave, and it's going to take more than a couple hundred years to change those. I don't argue the changes that he shows in the way people behave and interact with one another. I seriously question whether any such thing can happen so fast. That's where I run up against it. I know people too well. Yeah. And it's going to take major reworking of almost every culture on the planet before that kind of change would become possible. You see that happening? I don't know. And I rather like the warrior, darker feeling in both Voyager and in DS9. While I have no great desire to write DS9 myself, just to prove that TNG did. I like the fact that the people in it are more human, even the aliens are more human, and more alien in a way. I prefer nice function efficiency. You have to try and restrain your dark side. I have no argument with that. I have no argument with the Kirk who stands up and says, we will not kill today. We know we could kill, but we're just not going to do that today. But I prefer to see the wrestling with the dark side. The good people, generally speaking, are not the ones who are good unconsciously. They're the ones who have grappled with their dark side and know it well, and so can catch themselves when they're about to be bad. The people who ignore the dark side of things and sort of proceed along the assumption that everything is sweetness and light are the ones who do evil unconsciously. You learn from grappling with and acknowledging the presence of that bad side of you, the thing that wants to kill, that wants to kick the other person in the shin, and walk away laughing. And you don't learn about managing human personalities, that part of human personality, by ignoring that. You learn by coming to grips with it directly for yourself. I don't always do it perfectly, but I know it's there. And I fight with it, and it gets loud. And sometimes that good writing is sourced in that fight. So, the better writers, I think, are the ones who are aware of that side of themselves and can write realistically about it as a result in other people. I have very little patience with sort of absolute good and absolute evil. Though every now and then I like to write a really bad, evil, nasty person. But I write it from first-hand knowledge. I don't have to look at other people. I know exactly where to go with that kind of
stuff. Do you find Captain Picard irritating or dislike him? I don't know.
No, I like his buns. I like his buns. I think he's a hunk. I like him as an actor. I think he's a good actor, and I think he brought a lot to that part, which may have been wasted on some of us. I don't know. He doesn't trouble me. I find myself somewhat troubled by Captain Janeway in that they won't give her pockets. She needs pockets badly.
She needs earrings.
Earrings would help.
Catherine Hepburn.
Let her hair down.
Yeah.
She's done it once.
She does it occasionally, yeah, you see the hair down, but she just needs pockets, because when she gets pissed off, all she can do is this. And it looks like, it's like Chrissy, it looks like a little girl, and you just want to just give her pockets to shove her hands in and go walk into the bridge, saunter into the bridge, say, all right, what's not working here, let's fix it. But she just has nothing to do with her hands, and very few people are comfortable enough to be able just to let their hands hang at their sides and look natural. It's very hard. Pockets for Captain Janeway. Kathleen Turner. Yeah, that would have been interesting. Dream casting. In the final analysis, you get who you can afford. It's one of those things, you're writing for track, you say, you know, I want to write this great story, Ron. He says, good, I can afford one set and a guy in a rubber suit. That's it. That's what you get. You have to work inside the boundaries of the sandbox.
Well, there goes the last spider then.
Yeah, yeah.
Say the novel.
She can say the novel. I mean, one of the nice things about the novels is you don't have to worry about the budget. You have that best of special effects laboratories to work with, the inside of your brain.
It's a shame that Paramount didn't seem to understand that, though.
Well, it's not just me. It's just it was everybody. They decided that starships, which are human-crewed starships, should not have aliens on them. They're humanoid. And you know, look, it's theirs. They own it. They get to make the rules. It's unfortunate, but that's just the way it is. It's that way with any other television series you write for. It's all work for hire. They own it. They get to say. Now, of course, when my series sells, I own it, and I get to say. And I wait for that day with you know, eager anticipation. But in the meantime, if you're going to write television, you learn to play by the rules. It's just part of the way it is. You take the money, you smile, you go away, you buy yourself something large and nice, and you console yourself. You understand, no matter what series you're writing for, that you know the money they pay you gives them the right to rewrite you completely, totally. And since that's what they did on my Trek episode, I was not surprised when it happened. You know, of our original script that we turned in, one shot in one scene, right? We did not invent the travel. We did not invent the Klingon pig. Sorry. I felt so sorry. I mean, that's the saddest piece of pork I've ever seen.
No.
I know.
Fun.
Are you kidding? Do you see the look on his face?
It does not look
Tranked
happy.
up to the gills. That poor thing was so full of Valium he could scarcely move. Because if they didn't, he'd kill them all. Those little peccaries are quite fierce. It was a wild boar, an American native wild boar, and so they tranked him up, and you can just see him, you know, calling his mother afterwards. They said I had a good career in screen, and they painted me blue, and they put rubber spots on my head. And no, it was very sad. I felt that he was not mine. The Traveler. We had an original scientist who was just a nice guy who invented better than you. He was not a prat. He was not the dreadful, stuck-up. Words I won't say. He was not like that in our original, and we got caught in one of those political things that happens occasionally in a large studio or a small one. They hired on a new line producer, and they said, well, let's see how he can rewrite. And our script was first on the top of the pile, and they handed him the script and said, here, rewrite this. And he did. And to validate his own existence, as rewrite people will, he took out almost everything of ours and put in a whole bunch of other stuff. And there we are. We still get letters from people saying how nice the episode is. We got paid. We got paid. He got no credit. The thing was nominated for an Emmy. I had this wonderful image of it actually winning an Emmy, and us having to go and take the award after this guy completely rewrote us. And images of him writhing on the floor in his park in Hollywood. It's not fair! It's not fair! You know, tough, you know. But, you know, as it happens, we took the money, we went away. We made an appreciable amount of money off those. I mean, it's not widely known, but Guild, for a first-time writer, if you crack to the script level, your first time out, Guild scale for a 1-hour live-action drama, at that point was $18,000. Now, I consider that a fair week's wage. Honestly. And then you start getting the residuals. And so, you know, they'll show it again. After they get 2 shows for free with your first script. And then after that, every time they show it again, they have to pay you. It's quite nice. You know, you're minding your own business and suddenly you get a check for $2,000. That's nice. And this happens repeatedly for years. You know. And that episode, you know, made over the course of its active showtime. It's still being shown, so every now and then we get a little payment. It scales down over time. It made nearly twice what they paid us initially for it. You know, so I consider that salve for the wounded heart. You know, how terrible, they rewrote me completely and they keep paying me. How sad.
Ron Madison didn't feel that way, did he? He still writes about it now.
I know. That's just
Bad
not.
loser.
It's just, no, it's just not the way I'm constituted. I tend to say, fine, give me the money. Yeah. I mean, I have a household to help support. I have cats which need to be fed. I mean, Peter and I have to sleep sometime. And if they don't get fed regularly,
You don't sleep.
you don't sleep. And you know, they don't understand, oh, I'm sorry, I don't feel creative today. They don't understand why there's no cat food. There had just better be cat food all the time. So, you know, I'll do what I have to do to earn my living, and if it means just sort of taking the money and not weeping too hard when I find I've been rewritten. These things happen. I mean, I've had people say to me, you know, how can you stand having them rewrite your words? And the truth of it is, any television writer working for any series has to learn to cope with this. This is just the way it is. They can rewrite you a word's worth, or they can rewrite you completely, and they have the right to do that. Now, if you're really angry, if you want to take your name off something, you can do that. And that's certainly what Harlan did with the one script of Cordwainer Bird. But we have guild registered pseudonyms. This is real great. If you don't like what's been done to you, rewrite. You can insist that your name be taken off it. And so you have to go register a pseudonym with the guild. This is great.
Do you still get the money?
Yes.
You pseudonym?
Yes, pseudonym is. You get paid. You just don't have to be, you know, directly associated.
That's great.
Oh, yeah.
It's a way of telling the world, I do not approve, do not approve.
No, but they have to pay you. They have to pay you. If I'm going to get the cash. I'm going to get the cash in. You know, no, you get to make an artistic statement. We were busy arguing when the one has gone before, when we found out how completely it had been rewritten. Michael and I started saying, well, maybe we should pseudonym this one. And then it was too late. We spent so much time arguing about what pseudonyms to register, and then it was in the can. So we said, oh well, never mind. What's his? I forget. Oh, Bend Over?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Bend Over. That's a favorite. Mine was done for Belgian language. You bet the beat. You have to pardon us. Yes. We have these. I have a new one now. Isidore Hitmouse.
Oh.
Yes. I love animals. They're so great. And Isidore, for those of you who don't know, Isidore Hitmouse is a little creature who is a terrible coward. He likes to poke people with skewers. And he is always writing in his hating book. This is great. The bad guys in these books have little books they carry around with them so they can scribble hateful things and really frustrate. That would be very, very psychologically healthy.
Yeah. Better go around hitting people, I suppose.
One of the stories, they come across the receipt for the hating books, don't they?
Yes.
Dear sir, since this account has been presented in his final demand, addressed to the head of the bad guys, this account has been presented in several ways over the past few years, and we would now like to press for payment. The bad guy, Beaver Hateman, is just a wonderful character. They wear sack suits. They wear suits made of sacking. He's so mean that to save money on boots, he's had hobnails nailed into his feet. He's really awful. And I love these characters. They're a great joy. Our corporation name, the Owl Springs Partnership, is derived from the Uncle books. Owl Springs being just a place where, if you're very lucky, you might get to see the owl. It is so surreal. This aspect of the book is so strange. People come from miles around on the chance they might see this owl. And if you see it, your reputation is made for the rest of your life. You know, you'll dine out on this story forever. And other than that, it's not much to the springs. It's just a little spot on the ground. You know, coach tours come from hundreds of miles away to see the owl. You know, read this chapter of the book and sat there, Peter, did I miss something here? I mean, they see the owl and everyone goes away profoundly moved, just to the core of their souls. And I said to him, am I missing something? He said, no, that's all there is. I said, okay, fine. They're great books. We're pressing our friends in LA to see if we can get Spielberg to look at making a children's series, or at least an animated special. They're so peculiar. They're very British. He might go for it. He might go for it. It'd be fun.
An incredibly rich element wearing a purple dressing gown.
Yeah, Uncle's great. What else can I tell?
What else?
Yeah, obviously when you write something as a book as opposed to a screenplay, obviously the technical difficulties is one to another. But when you actually come up with a story, And you think, well, this will be a great book, but it's also, I can imagine it as a screenplay.
Yeah.
Do you find any real difficulty technically actually getting down to say, well, this one would be a better book?
Yeah.
What are the technical difficulties that you actually decide whether it's going to be a screenplay or a book?
Often enough it's budget. You'll look at it and you'll say, can this be shot? Can it be filmed? If it could seriously be filmed. As a lazy and money-grubbing woman, I would much sooner write it as a screenplay, because if you sell it as a book, they'll maybe give you 10, 20,000 quid. If you sell it as a screenplay, they'll give you 90 or 100 or 150,000 quid. That's a lot of cat food. That's a lot of cat food. That's a lot of nights I sleep secure because I know the cats will not kill me. You know, and there is a certain level on which you will look. If there is genuinely artistically no difference between doing the project as a novel or doing it as a film, that can be tough, and you'll really soul search over that. But generally speaking, if you can market such a thing as a film, you do, if you can. But you know, I try real hard to look and see what the story wants, how best to serve the story, and get it told best. Sometimes it will just make itself plain immediately that I want to be a movie or I want to do a book. And if it's obvious right away like that, then you know it would be a sin to try and shove it into the other category because you'd like some more money or something. You can't do that. It's bad. On the other hand, if the story itself has no opinion either way, and it is filmable, then I'd sooner look at the television or film ending because it's a change of pace. It's a pleasant break. One of the nice things about doing the thing with electronic arts was that here were suddenly all these new people that I didn't know, who were all completely out of their minds, and at the same time very good and sane at what they did. And it was such a pleasure getting out of the house and working creatively with just other people who know lunatics in very nice ways. And it was just a change of pace. Oh look, groceries. No? Oh, oh, yeah.
That's Diane's line, actually.
Oh, right. Donuts, yeah. But I mean, there will be times when you must stop and look and just see what the project wants for itself. If it has no opinion, then you make its mind up for it. But you try to do well by it, because if you don't, your project will turn and savage you. If you try to push the square peg into the round hole, it will get you eventually. It will make you sorry you tried.
It works on TV.
One more thing. Somebody said to me last night, talk to Diane about cover art.
Yeah, so far so good.
I thought I'd say.
No, it's okay. Well, someone was showing me this one painting the other night, the cover, and saying, God, isn't this awful? I said, no, that's the good one. That's the good one. That's the first one I framed. Yeah, the original cover for The Door into Fire was so bad. So bad. I mean, here it is, your first novel, and you're so pleased. You've actually sold the book, and they're going to publish it. They say, we're sending you the cover. And you get the envelope that has the cover flat in it. And you go, wow, wow. And you open it up, and you take the cover flat out, and it's incredibly ugly. Just incredibly bad. There's this sort of see-through woman with like her tits hanging out, and there's this guy crouched down on one side who appears to have congenital bone disease of the hands. So his hands are all like this. He appears to be making a furtive grab for one of the woman's tits. And on the other side, there's this horse, which is supposed to be a fire elemental, but actually appears to have had lighter fluid poured over it and set on fire. And I looked at this thing and I said, oh dear, oh dear. And I understood how it feels to have a thalidomide baby. I had a thalidomide cover. I was looking at it. And I just put it away in its little file envelope, and I never, ever framed it. I mean, the first thing you're supposed to do with your cover is frame it, put it on the wall, so you can point, brag, and say, look, I still have it. It's still in the same envelope. Every now and then I run across it in the file and go, nah. Keep going by. And the British cover, which was actually done for an Andy Offutt cover and got recycled onto mine, don't ask me how, from Methuen. was actually, you know, vaguely okay. The only problem was that the woman has no toes. And I really do want to know what a guy in this giant horny armor, you know, that no one could ever wear because it would destroy you, is doing with this sort of naked babe hanging around his neck. It's not in the book, I don't recall her. But at the same time, it was a painting. You could look at it and say, yes, a human being drew that, who knows something about human anatomy, and so it's okay, even if she doesn't have toes. So that one's all right. That one I have framed. I got it. I put it up in the office. Yeah. You don't like that one, do you? Why? It's a painting. It's okay. Well, I mean, you know. Yeah, but it's the first one.
You feel better than that standing on the toilet. While you're fucking.
But, you know, there
This
is.
we can arrange.
There is. And I feel really toward it. It was the first cover for my first book that I could hang up. So I don't mind. It's had better books since. The one that Corey did for Fire was really terrific. Really wonderful, and service as an in-joke book very wonderfully. Because one of the world gates that the hero finds himself looking out on the San Diego freeway in the San Fernando Valley in Los Angeles, and I know that, and you know, Angelenos who know the area will recognize it from the description. And so when they got hold of the artist, I said, let me give him a hint. Ask him to put this here. And the artist said, sure, why not? So here you have this hero, you know, really good-looking guy, uplit from under by the sword, which is all in flames, and behind him is the San Diego freeway. And it's beautiful. And all you can see is this wonderful blur of light weaving its way up the mountainside. And you look at it and go, God, that's gorgeous. What is it? And everyone looks at it and says, it's a great fancy cover. I don't know what that stuff is in the background. And all the Angelenos go, that's a San Diego freeway. That was fun. That was so much fun. So I think we have to stop now. I think we did.
Thank you very much, Diane. It's been one of the most fun interviews I've ever done.